Good evening, everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Board of Finance. Today is Thursday, November 12th, 2020, and the time is now 7:02 p.m. We have a full quorum here. Everybody's present, and we also have some guests this evening that will be speaking. But we will start with delegations in the waiting room. We have a couple of folks, Dan and Dana. Would either of you like to address the Board of Finance during delegations? If so, please raise your hand. Okay, so I think they're just going to wait to talk during the presentation of the body cams. Dana, did you unmute yourself? Is there something you'd like to say to the Board of Finance this evening before we get started?
No, just when we talk about the body cams.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Yep.
Okay. One more time, I'll call for delegations. Seeing no hands or hearing no one speak, we'll move on to agenda item 3, which is approval of prior meeting minutes. We'll start with the minutes from September 17th, 2020. Those should be in your package. This was the set of meeting minutes where I believe we were missing the very last page. Now we have them. If everybody's had a chance to review those meeting minutes, could somebody please make a motion to approve them?
I'll make a motion to approve the special meeting minutes of September 17th, 2020 for the Board of Finance.
Thanks, Ann Chicello. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thanks, Ann Santoro. Is there any discussion about these set of minutes? Any corrections that should be noted? Okay, hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
We have thank you. We have 6 hands. It's unanimous. Moving on to the next set of meeting minutes from October 14th, 20. I'll start off this time by asking anybody if they have any comments or questions or corrections.
Yes, I do.
Yes, Rich.
On page 3, under new business, under the special appropriation and transfer, there's a sentence. She said that she has some questions for his. I believe it's just a typo, should be for him.
Okay. Thank you, Rich. Anything else?
I have one. On page 4, second paragraph down, it said, Mr. DeRosa said he would be interested in resources available from COG with respect to the number of municipalities it serves. I'm not sure what I said that night. I know what I was intending to say that night, which was I wanted to compare what our human resources capacity was to using the COG and their resources to compare what our human resources staffing was compared to other similar sized municipalities. That was one comment that I thought I said that evening. And I think I also made a comment about that I didn't think the COG would free up resources for routine work. So I don't know how we want to change that sentence, but I'm sure she had a hard time deciphering what I was saying. So I would be content just saying how our number of human resources people, staff we have in East Lyme compared to other comparable towns. I would be content with that.
Okay, would you state that again slowly so that Karen can make note of that?
Mr. DeRosa said he would be interested in how the staffing of East Lyme's human resources compares to other similar sized towns.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Was that it, Peter?
Was it? Yeah.
Anybody else? I just had one small correction. This is on page 2, the second line, where it says the middle school renovation projects. I think we just need to take out the word middle, since we're really talking about the elementary school projects. So we could just leave middle out completely. That's it. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? So do I have a motion to approve these minutes as corrected?
Yes, I'll move to approve the East Lyme Board of Finance regular minutes of Wednesday, October 14th, 2020 as amended.
Thanks, Ann Santoro. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I'll second.
Okay, thanks, Peter. I'll call for a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Okay, it is unanimous, 600. Thank you. All right, with that, we'll move on to the reports. Up first this evening is a report from the Board of Education folks. We have Mr. Newton on call, as well as Marianne Stevens. There she is.
Hey, everybody.
So I'll open it up
Thanks.
to the Board of Ed.
Thank you. Nice to see everybody. Just a couple of quick updates. I'm sure everybody is watching and hearing, across the news with the rise in COVID cases. Although East Lyme was down into the yellow, which was good for we were in red at one point, went to orange and down into yellow. We're seeing an uptick in our cases across the schools. We had 5 this week. We have multiple staff members and students that are testing right now across the district, hoping most of those come back negative. But we have had 5 cases this week spread out across almost all of our schools. Keeping the schools open though, staying in the hybrid model. We're not changing that. We've had a lot of discussion the last couple of weeks on trying. At one point we're trying to get back as of November 16th back in full, at least K-6. Just not the time to do that with the increase in cases. So a new target date of January 4th when we get back after the holidays to start working towards, as long as the cases are hopefully declining, getting our at least K-6 students back in full. We feel it's important. We really want to see our kids back, but we need to do it safely as well. And that's where kind of a budget impact, additional budget impact comes in. As we've had that running list. It has remained the same. There's been no changes. Other than, and this isn't definite yet, but if we are able to bring back our K-6 students, that would be our K-4 at the elementary and then our 5-6 at the middle school, we're going to need to invest in additional plexiglass, plastic barriers, foldable barriers that the kids would use on tabletops and on their desks. So we're just estimating some costs. So just the K-4 estimate, about 800 students, roughly about $27,704. Each of those is about $34.50 a piece. So logistically, we're working through all those components, working with the teachers and staff. That's just for K-4, and then we'd have to look at 5-6 as well, which would be some additional money, but we're trying to start there. It's a 2-week order process, so we're not pulling the trigger on that yet. We're waiting as long as we can before we go and make that purchase, until we really truly know that the numbers have plateaued of cases and things are starting to go down. So we can try and get our K-6 students back and then work our way up as we move through the remainder of the school year, if at all possible, and maybe get freshmen and sophomores back in, or our juniors back in, as a lot of college planning is going on, or starting up in the early spring. The other piece, last meeting, you had asked about devices. So we have deployed all of our devices at the new devices at the elementary level. We're finishing up the middle school this week, and then next week will be the high school. So all of our kids will have their devices before Thanksgiving, which is great. They're already being used and implemented. So that's exciting. It's been a huge task, but our tech team has been deploying those. Mariana, you just want to talk, we got approval, I think you mentioned to me yesterday on one of the grants. Can you just talk about that for a sec?
Sure. So I had mentioned we had the ESSER fund, which we were approved for, and we end of last week were approved for the Corona relief funds. We were able to reallocate that money. Initially, they had allocated it for PPE and transportation, but we were able to reallocate because really our transportation costs as of right now, initially when it was submitted, we thought we'd have to add extra buses and additional monitors. We don't have that need now, so we moved it so that I can cover some of the salaries for the virtual Viking component, because that money has to be spent by December 31st. So it will cover the PPE we've purchased and then what we'll spend for some of the virtual Viking salaries. Not all of it, but a piece of it. So that was good news.
The only other piece I wanted to add was we are planning, in the past we've had 2 budget workshops. We're going to consolidate, I think, the November workshop into one of our board meetings, but we will definitely have a separate December budget workshop. So I just wanted to, I don't want the date set yet, but we will let the Board of Finance know. As some of you have attended that, in the past, we'd love to have you take part in that again. We're working hard to keep our numbers as low as possible. We're not looking at adding additional staff next year. We have no idea where we're going to be, so we're just trying to kind of status quo as we look at next year. And Mariana's doing a great job working through that as we speak. So all of the principals' budgets, school budgets, will be up before Thanksgiving. So that's about it. That's where we're at as of right now. Again, just kind of on hold with that additional PPE cost of the for the barriers. I'm not sure if we'll pull the trigger on that, but when we report out next month, we'll have a final answer on that. So any questions
Very good.
at all?
Yes, Rich. Unmute yourself, Rich.
Yes, Jeff, I was wondering, you mentioned that you've got several staff and students that are currently getting tested. And I know that the test times at, like if you go down to the community health center in New London, that it can be 3 hours to go through getting swabbed. And I'm wondering, for the individuals that you're asking to get tested to ensure that we're doing well with the schools, are there special provisions that are made for them to be able to get appointment testing in a easy to do fashion?
No, we haven't specifically asked anybody to get. We just recommend to them if, for instance, if they're a primary contact with somebody who is infected, Legislite really recommends and says, you should go get yourself tested. And most people are heeding that. I don't know where they're going, Rich, to be honest. But I think they're calling their primary care physicians, and the physicians are directing them as to where to go so they can expedite those tests. But I haven't heard any issues with long delays. We're getting the results back from people pretty quick, a couple days at the most. So it seems to be working, pretty well.
Okay. Okay, I just wanted to make sure that things were as easy as possible for people to get tested.
Yeah. I'll sniff around. It's a good question. Mariana, have you ever heard from anybody that's?
No, I haven't. I
All
feel
right.
like it was an issue here. So.
Yeah, I haven't heard anything as of yet, but a number of people are in the process of getting tested. We'll know more. We got one that's probably positive, pretty confident. We'll find out tomorrow. That's been part of a program that we had to quarantine tonight. So we'll get that information hopefully tomorrow.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Any other questions for either Mariana or Jeff from the board members? Yes, Ann Chicello.
Hi. Well, I was out standing at the polls. I had somebody approach me and ask me why each student is required, if they're required, to use a device supplied by the school, and why they can't use their home device. And I didn't know if it was possible for them to use their home device, or if you want everybody to be using the device that has been supplied by the school.
We're really asking everybody to use the devices supplied by the school, because remember, they're traveling back and forth with the devices. And if they're bringing their own device into school, the ones we've given out are all Dells. We don't know if they're carrying a Mac into the school, the teacher, if something happens, they might not be able to assist them or help them. It's just, we're trying to get everybody on the same platform, same device, so everybody's familiar with it. So that's why we're really encouraging, the use of the district devices. And all of our software is loaded onto those, security, provisions around there as well. So it just makes things so much easier when you've got so many devices out there.
Okay, thank you. I'm hoping the person is listening because they were really upset that, we were spending money on devices. And I said, no, I think it's a good thing to have everything be uniform, but I just wanted to have that reiterated. Thank you.
Yes, thanks, Ann.
So while we're talking about, having the same devices rolled out to all the students, how are we managing software patches and updates to all of those devices? Is that, I think at one time, Mariana, were you going to hire somebody to help with making sure all the devices were outfitted in the same manner, or did we hire a company to handle that for us? I don't remember.
Yeah, we're working both through our tech team on site as well as custom computers. So what we've done in the effort to help support parents, because now parents are getting these new devices home. We're having the kids, they have to log on first on site in school to get their email logged into the system. They take it home, but if they have any technical difficulties, there's a hotline they can call anytime, 24/7, and they can reach out to custom computers. So that's been working pretty well. So that's been our main method of supporting parents. We've got a lot of grandparents and aunts and uncles too that are helping their kids with these devices, so they don't necessarily. Some are struggling with the platforms that the kids are using. So we're trying to provide as much support as possible.
And that would be very difficult if you had a number of different types of devices, as you said. Just trying to keep up to date with the. Yeah, it's impossible.
That's a great point, Camille, because custom computers, if they call the hotline, they can't help them because they don't know what system or platform, their or device they're using. So it makes it that much more difficult.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Mariana or Jeff this evening? Okay, I don't see anybody else with questions. So again, thank both of you for giving us an update, and we look forward to seeing when your December budget meeting is going to be scheduled. And we're happy to participate in that as a concerned citizen.
Sounds
Right.
good. We'll get those dates set pretty soon.
Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Have a
Thanks,
good night.
everybody. You too.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to the next report from the first selectman. Mark Nickerson is with us this evening.
Yes, I am. Hi, folks. I'll make this brief. I wrote a few notes out. We're watching the numbers in the region and at the town level because we're contemplating the shutting down of town buildings again for the safety of our personnel, for the safety of the patrons that would come in intermingling. We're watching that. Right now, our numbers are actually pretty good in town, in spite of what Mr. Newton is going through in the schools. When the governor started this color system about a month ago, I swear I think it came to him, and the next day it was implemented, yet the towns weren't notified. So I was getting calls from, Channel 3, Channel 30 going, can we come down? We want to do a story on East Lyme because they're a red town. And I thought it was a Republican thing, red, and I really didn't know. And then, the next day we got the memos from the Department of the governor and the governor's office, and they explained that the color coding system. We started 1 week in the red. The next week we were in orange. Last week we fell out of the colors, so that's a really good sign. But we're watching it, and let's face it, if we're turning on the news, if we're paying attention, if we're talking to people, we know this thing is just blowing up right now. We know people all around us are getting COVID and the contact stuff and all that. I know several businesses that have been shut down or have limited personnel. It's gone through several departments in town as well. We're watching that. We might close the town hall without notice. So we're urging people, if you don't have to come in, don't come in. Call, please. Do consider paying your water bill, your sewer bill online, or pay it, put a stamp on it like the like the old-fashioned days, and your tax bills that will be due in January. Again, make plans to pay that online or maybe put a stamp on it. It will give our town personnel that safety that we're looking for. And very likely, when you pull up to the town hall, the doors may be locked. We do have a drop box if that is the case, and it's in the front of the building where the ballot boxes were. While I'm on that ballot boxes, I might as well segue right to the town clerk's office, and the 2 registrars in town did a remarkable job during this election process. We saw the lines all over the place. We saw the confusion all over the place. They're still counting ballots in some counties in the United States. We've never seen that kind of chaos in East Lyme. Our registrars, generations of registrars, have done a great job of doing the right thing and passing it down. This year, our town clerks had to get much more involved, where everybody got a mail-in ballot. And, you know, we're a small town. We're not prepared for that. But even the big cities weren't prepared to get thousands and thousands of ballots. But we rolled up our sleeves. We came together and we got it done. And I feel very confident as the chief elected official in town to tell everybody in town your vote was counted. If you voted, your vote was counted. It was done correctly and without malice. So we can move on from that. And I think the people that did show up on election day were very satisfied with the lines. I think the longest line was at like 6 a.m. when everybody was trying to get there early to beat the line, and they created a line. And then from about 7 o'clock on for the rest of the day was steady flow at all 3 of our ballot polling stations. This weekend, Saturday, November 14th at Guy's Oil, from 9 to 1 or 9 to 2, there's going to be a food drive put on by the Niantic Rotary Club. This is, you know, pre-Thanksgiving week. We're looking to collect a lot of money and collect a lot of food for those that might be struggling this year. There's many, many, many more people in our community and in our region that are struggling. And we hope that people will take a drive by on 156 on Saturday morning, help the Rotary Club out by helping the region. I think the money and the food goes to the Gemma Moran Food Bank, which is based in New London and really serves the whole region, not just East Lyme. So please give generously. Please think about that. If you're going out and doing some pre-Thanksgiving shopping, fill an extra bag up and anything works. It doesn't have to be Thanksgiving focused. Anything works. We are going to have a holiday stroll this year. It's going to be downsized. There's not going to be there's going to be activities. There's activities for the kids, and there'll be other things going on Main Street. But we'll be doing a virtual tree lighting or something like that. And it's going to be during the day instead of the evening. So when we usually start it at dusk and people come down and be festive, we're going to do it during the afternoon. So watch for notifications of that. That's November 28th. It's a week from it's a couple Saturdays from now, I believe. And then we are going to have a light parade, but it's going to be a reverse light parade where the floats will sit up at McCook's Park and the cars will go by the floats. And that way people can stay in their cars and maybe roll down their windows and take a look at it, maybe take some pictures. Father Tony down at St. John says it will be the mother of all traffic jams. The police are here tonight. You know, you got to keep the cars moving, guys. So do that. So that's that. So we will have on December 12th a reverse light parade, and we encourage all those people who have submitted in the past all those beautiful floats to come on aboard and be festive with us. The town received a STEEP grant. The Small Town Economic Assistance Program is a program in East Lyme. That's how we rebuilt Main Street. That's how we got all the light poles and the benches and beautiful brick sidewalks and put appropriate trees on Main Street that weren't tearing up the sidewalks and so many other things. We received a STEEP grant last week of $128,205. They're very specific grants. This will go to the transfer station vehicle scale and an upgrade to the scale house. If you've been up there, it's in pretty dire shape. We were going to use LoCIP money for that, but now we have the STEEP grant, so we can reapply the LoCIP money to other projects that we are doing in town. That's about it. We continue to work with the COG, the Council of Governments, Legislative Health District on a weekly basis, trading information, best practices, Department of Public Health, the Department of Labor, because we are an employer, a significant employer of many people. So we want to make sure we're doing all the things right. So basically that's what's going on. And I wish you all a very a great Thanksgiving. I'm sure it'll be downsized to what we used to, but be safe and have a great Thanksgiving.
Thanks, Mark. If you're open to questions, I'd like to ask the board members if they have any questions for the first selectman. Any questions for Mark this evening? I don't really have a question. I have a comment, Mark. This STEEP grant that you mentioned is only possible when our plan of conservation and development is updated every 10 years, correct? So for example, if that were not an updated document, is it true that we wouldn't be eligible for such grants?
I think we would be ineligible for many grants and many things. So it's always important to keep our POCD updated. And of course, as you know, we've gone to public hearing. We've been working, many people have been working on that for the last 18 months, and it's just about ready for publication. So yes, that's an important part of listen, it's bribery, right? If you don't do this, we won't give you money. It's one way to force towns to do it, but great. And we've received millions of dollars in grants over the years. And yes, that is a prerequisite.
Right, thank you. So I just thought it was a good opportunity to give a good shout out to those folks that were on the POCD subcommittee. They really worked hard and they came up with a really excellent document with lots of good recommendations. And I was particularly impressed with how they really reached out several times to the public to try to get a pulse on what residents want our town to look like going forward. And I just thought they did an excellent job. And I'm just happy that they've gotten through it. And I hope that we find opportunities to implement many of their excellent recommendations going forward. So there's no other questions or for the first selectman, we can move on. Anybody else? Okay, with that, we'll move on to the report from our finance director, Anna Johnson.
Good evening. In your packets, I included a report on the COVID expenditures for the town side. We made our submission to the CRF program. The state had set aside $168,090 for East Lyme based on estimates that we had sent in earlier in the year. I believe it was April, May. And so as you can see, we've put in substantially less than the funds that they had set aside for us. But this is just for the period of March 1st through June 30th. They will be opening up the July through September period in the next several weeks. We did get approved for the full amount that we submitted, the $36,795.11. As you can see, the larger expenses were with legal fees, the IT equipment, and office modifications. So the legal fees were both on the, corporate counsel, meaning, general government, and then also on the labor side. Equally as much. So that's why, the number is a little larger there. I will comment that with regards to PPE supplies, for quite a period of time, we were receiving supplies directly from the state. Through our emergency management department, we would submit what we were using on a weekly basis, and then we would go to the designated site and pick up supplies, not always knowing what they were. So that did help us out a bit, why we didn't have as many expenditures. And you'll also note that we made the expenditures not just with the general government. It includes water, sewer operations. We did make some purchases in the Parks and Rec Special Revenue Fund, as well as the town clerk has a fund that's designated by state statute. And so we used funds in that fund to purchase the laptop for her, as well as the their plexiglass screens that they use at the counter. So for July 1st through September 30th, there's another $8,500 in expenditures, and then beginning on October 1st, we're just a little under $900. When I did speak with the representative at OPM, he indicated that after September 30th, there wouldn't be any funds left in the fund. So he thought it was going to stop. But then if you look at in East Lyme's situation, they had set aside $168,000, and we haven't submitted anywhere near that amount. So I'm hoping that they'll keep it open through the end of December so that we can get as much back as possible. Then the other piece of it is what we had to spend on the election. Both the town clerk and the registrars have received some other funding from the state. So I'm not sure if any of those expenditures will be eligible for us to submit under this program. Now that the election's over, I'll be sitting down with them to kind of go over things, because I want to manage it so that we can maximize on getting reimbursed for expenditures that we had to make. I mean, I believe in the month of October, we spent $3,500 on postage mailing out all the ballots. So, that's something I'd like to recover. But if the CRF program closes at the end of September, then we wouldn't be able to, submit those expenditures. So that's another piece that we have to look at. And then I did note there are some items about $20,000 that I'll be submitting to the FEMA program. That's what is classified as the emergency protective measures that we had to take, which is really related to public safety. And all of those expenditures are with our fire departments. I don't know if anyone has any questions on that. Yes, Ann. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just a quick question. Under the COVID expenditures, you have one town and sewer, water. What's HP and SRF on the top of those columns?
Yeah, so HP is historic preservation, and SRF is special revenue fund. That's the Parks and Recreation Fund.
Thank you.
Anna? Yes, I had when you and I spoke recently, because we've been meaning to discuss the COVID-related revenues and expenditures and trying to get something going. So thanks for putting this together. When I spoke with you, I think you had mentioned that you might be trying to contact the library to find out about their flagged expenses. This is separate and apart from the potential grant.
Right.
So I don't know if you heard anything.
I hadn't had a chance to do that. I'll make a note and reach out to Tara tomorrow.
Okay. And yeah, while I am mentioning the library, I spoke with Anna about the topic of the possibility of the grant. I think we mentioned this last time, that I think it was October 7th. The governor announced that $2.6 million would be distributed to about 65 libraries through the state for COVID-related purposes. And so there was some excitement that we would get some of that funding. Unfortunately, with the formula used, we did not. So the formula was based on population. There's a grand list per capita formula, and some library operating expenses. So I did speak with, or I did actually email back and forth with our local representative, Cheeseman, and with Lisa Timothy. So, they're just staying put on the topic because there may be a town or two that was awarded some money, but will not be able to use the money. So it's kind of still a little bit open-ended. It would have been nice to get some funding. I'd say the average, the amounts were anywhere from 12,000 to 75,000. Sort of most of them falling in that $35,000 to $40,000 range. But there may be another round of this money as well. So, but they'll just keep apprised of it. But it was unfortunate that we didn't make round one. Maybe there'll be a round two that we'll make. So, thanks.
So Ann Santoro, you had asked Anna to forward this information to us. Is this something that you would like to see every month from now? And
it might be, yeah, if it's not too difficult, a monthly basis, or it could even happen, in between meetings. It doesn't always have to happen with a meeting, but when there's any significant change or when it goes with your flow of information that you're getting from the various departments. I think it's helpful to know, where we stand with it all, and I guess the difficult piece, and I spoke with Anna about this, is sometimes identifying the sources of revenue, because we're told one thing, we'll read things, we'll think we qualify for something, and then it doesn't quite work out that way. But, and it's hard unless, to really research all that. Although Anna did say that I think it's Martin Hess that you're working with at OPM seems to be giving you pretty good updated information. So that's good. This is something, it almost seems to me that the respective departments almost have to advocate for themselves as they can. So for example, the librarians, may need to talk to the head state librarian and say, remember us, we're still here, we're open, we're really helping students and seniors and so forth. So there's definitely an advocacy component to this that that may help. I'm not sure how that will pan out for the various departments, but I say speak up if you can. That would be my thought on it. So. But yeah, I think this, back to your question, Camille, I think this is I think a good beginning point for us. And then, I was thinking along the way, if there needs to be some narrative about the different sources of information, I could write that up if Anna, under Anna's direction, and add that for some descriptive information, But I think it's very good as it's been presented.
yeah. Yeah, I think if you could get together with Anna and consolidate that information and include it on this report, so it's all in one place, that would be helpful. And then Anna, also, if you could please just date the report so that we can track from month to month the most recent version.
Yep.
That would be helpful. Rich Steele.
Yeah, Anna, I don't know if it's possible, but kind of just a rough ballpark of percentage of the budget that is being spent on this, if that could be included in the reports, if it's not too difficult. And if that changes, as we go through this pandemic, if we see, as our cases are spiking, if we have to spend more, and just a rough ballpark.
I think it covers the discussion for that report. How about the next one?
Yeah, so, on the monthly budget summary, you'll note that we did receive some of our state grant funding, the education cost sharing grant, the first installment of that, along with the municipal stabilization grant and the 2 pilot grants that we get. Once again, our building permits and our conveyance taxes, are good for the month. And we did receive our first tuition payment from Salem for the year. So that, that's a good start because it's very rather timely. So anyway, there, you'll note on the expenditure side, we did pay Waterford the facility rental fee in the month of October. And we did have a disbursement from the retirement liability account, just to, highlight those for you. In terms of our revenues coming in year to date, our percentages are right in line with where they were last fiscal year. And we're trending a little bit higher on the expenditure side. In looking at the revenues, I think our projections are good, meaning that we will meet our projections. And of course, there'll be some areas where we'll exceed our projections and others where we might be a little bit under, but not in a lot of areas. I will say that with our building permits and the conveyance taxes, I'm projecting that we will, exceed what our projections are. And I've done conservative estimates through the end of the year. And at this point, I'm projecting that we will use a little over $600,000 of the fund balance, the fund balance that we use to balance out, the budget this year. When I did it at the end of last month, at September, and it's about the same number. It went up a few $1,000s at the end of October, but not that much. But I will say that the estimates that I'm using for the rest of the year, I'm being very conservative, so that hopefully as we get through the next couple of months, we'll start to see a little bit of a shift there, and the amount of fund balance that we use will come down. So, that's kind of like good on the revenue side. On the expenditure side, the large concern is really what's going to happen with the Board of Education. The last projection that they did, they're looking at being over budget, possibly $1,046,000. You heard Superintendent Newton mention they're looking at just under $30,000 to purchase plexiglass if we look to get their kindergarten through fourth grade back to school. And so what he hinted at is using what the Board of Ed returned in last year's budget. It was about $565,000 to help fund a portion of that. The other remaining portion, it's about $400,000. I did speak with Mariana about that, and they've put a freeze on budget expenditures, and they've got a couple of places where they've realized some budget savings. So they're actually hoping that they'll be able to come up with the remaining portion within their budget this year. So as that plays out, that will have an effect on our year end. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there, for the board to be thinking about. So those are the only comments that I wanted to make this evening. I don't know if anyone has any further questions.
Are there any questions for the finance director? Yes, Rich.
Yes, there was something that was on page 5 of the detailed report that was a little bit confusing to me, and maybe I'm just not looking at it right. It was with the printing of the dog license and ballots, so I imagine it's printing the ballots. And
Right. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
oh, okay.
So what happened is the town clerk received some grant funding, so we did a budget reimbursement in the printing account, because that's the account that we'll use to pay for the ballots. And
Oh, okay.
the credit came in before we made the expenditure, so that's why you see a negative expenditure.
Oh, okay. Okay. That's great. And then the only other question that I've got is with and this has been historical from last year to this year, but for the dispatchers, the overtime, we're probably going to exceed what's budgeted for that.
Well, I think since Chief Finkelstein is here, he would be better to comment on that.
Yep. And unfortunately, as we discuss every year with the budget with dispatch, it's anomalies that are difficult sometimes to put under control. We have to have two people in the chair, 85% of the time. The rest of the midnight shifts have only one. But if one dispatcher is out for a medical, let's say a medical problem, which unfortunately seems to have happened multiple times in dispatch, where we've had dispatchers out month plus, we have to fill all those shifts. The second part of the anomaly with dispatch is the way we have our system set up. We have part-time dispatchers that fill in the shifts that the full-timers are not working. We've changed the schedule, cut down the number of known part-time shifts to 5 a week. Unfortunately, if we cannot get part-timers to volunteer to work those shifts, we end up paying overtime to the full-timers. So, that's one of the moving targets that we always are trying to bring under control. But unfortunately, besides overstaffing and having more full-timers, it's very difficult to ensure that's always going to happen. So, yeah, that is something that's on our radar as being, one of those lines that's not going to be sufficient.
Right. So I'm just thinking maybe going forward that if this trend is kind of consistent year to year, maybe as a line item that more be appropriated towards that overtime because of the anomalies that occur.
It's certainly, and I think if you remember 2 years ago when we added the last full timer, one of the attempts that we all made was to try to cut back on the overtime. So we cut that overtime line back, I think, with a very honest discussion amongst the finance board to say, we know we may have to come back, but for the budgeting purposes, we were going to try to cut that back and make every attempt. And we continue to make every attempt, but, certainly I'm in the same page with you, Rich, that, we really need to look at maybe bumping that up to what is a more realistic historical figure rather than what we hope it's going to be.
Right. Thanks, Chief.
Any other questions, Rich?
Nope.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Questions for Finance Director? So Anna, I understand that the auditors started their work on Monday. Could you give us an update on how they're progressing and how they'll be impacted if the town hall shuts down again?
Well, they didn't come in this week. They'll be coming in on Monday of next week. I don't think that they would be impacted if we shut the town hall down, because they would be considered, part of our staffing. We have workspace allocated for them to use. And what they can't do while at the town hall, we would probably have to make files and send them electronically.
Mm-hmm. So just a couple of concerns then. Why the delayed start, and will we be able to finish before the end of the year? It's already mid-November.
Right, yeah. No, I believe we'll be able to get done by the end of the year.
So did they say why? Perhaps what's the cause for the delayed start?
Yeah, there were some items that I had to wrap up before they could come out.
Okay, but they are scheduled to begin next Monday.
Yes, that's correct.
16th.
Mm-hmm,
okay.
Yes.
All right, thank you. If there's no further questions for the Finance Director, we'll move on to new business. First up is a special appropriation for the police body cameras in the amount of $279,549.08, with a transfer in the first year of $151,601.08 from contingency. Chief, would you like to have the floor?
Absolutely. First and foremost, I want to thank you all for having us here tonight. Myself, Lieutenant Masick, Lieutenant Jazerski have really spent a lot of time working on the police body camera issue. But I also want to, thank you for the support that several of the members of Finance have shown to us as we walk through this process, showing the support of what we really need to do. The Police Accountability Act that was passed into legislation back in July certainly has propelled a number of costs upon us as a municipality and as a police department that were not really planned So we're trying to do the best we can to adapt and really catch up to those. While we know that the Police Accountability Act was enormous in making this an absolute has to happen now, we also recognize from a police department standpoint that the body cameras are a very, very good tool, not just for us, but for our communities, for all of you. So we're looking forward to having the technology. We think it's going to better our policing. It's going to better our work with the community. So I think there's many, many positives around that. So as part of this process, we have spent, again, the past several months looking at the 3 top options that are utilized by departments around Eastern Connecticut. And I'll say this over and over again, I am not at all an advocate of reinventing the wheel. I think that working in concert with our partners in other communities certainly is beneficial because it helps us have that conversation of why did town X choose this product and why does it work for them? So in that light, we've looked at the 3 top products that are out there, that being Axon Technologies, Panasonic with the Arbitrator system, and WatchGuard Video. All 3 of those are utilized in some departments around southeastern Connecticut. So we've had conversations with those departments about what they like, what they don't like, why they chose that product, and when they chose that product, which I think is a very, very important piece that we can discuss. But also having the companies all come in, all provide demonstrations. And one of the biggest takeaways from the body camera scenario is there are not apples to apples. While we looked at 3 vendors, all 3 vendors, and this is consistent across the landscape and law enforcement with all the technology involving cameras, all offer vastly different products. So very early in this process, we recognized that we needed to look to see what was the product that was going to best serve the town of East Lyme, its police department, and its community. What was going to provide us going into the future with what we needed to have for a body camera system. Not just to accommodate the law, but also to make sure that everything that we have works seamlessly. We've all had discussions regarding IT in town. We know the strained pieces inside of IT, and that was very much front and foremost on our minds when we looked at these products to see what can have the smallest amount of impact on our IT infrastructure while giving us the best product possible. So in light of looking at these 3 products, and again, I have both lieutenants and Dan Price from the Police Commission with us today to be part of this conversation if you have questions. We brought the 3 in, and we have really looked at this, and Axon Technology is certainly the one that we are pushing forward as saying that is the technology that we feel meets the needs of our department and our community. Not only is it the most operationally efficient system, but we think long-term, and long-term, not, we're looking out 7+ years from now, is going to serve us best economically. And there's a lot of reasons for that. And you're going to notice the upfront cost is a little bit more than the other options. However, the long-term product it provides and the replacement that take place, which I think is a crucial piece of this, is beneficial. So to go over Axon just a little bit, what we're looking to do is equip our department with 25 body cameras and 2 spare cameras. Our fleet of 14 cars will be outfitted with the Axon in-car camera systems. But inside of the price that you pay for Axon, and I'll break this down into a couple of different ways, and certainly I'll try to end quicker so you can ask any questions you may have. But Axon offers one benefit that other options don't, and it's a replacement program. So at the 2.5-year mark and the 5-year mark, the body cameras are all completely replaced. The importance of that is wear and tear, battery life, but also new technology that comes out. So if we were to buy them today, we would get 25 brand new body cameras and 14 brand new in-car cameras. At 2.5 years, we will get 25 brand new body cameras and swap out the ones that we had. At 5 years, again, they will replace those 25 body cameras as well as completely replace all 14 in-car cameras. So in essence, what you're buying for the price that you're paying for Axon is 75 body cameras and 28 in-car cameras. Now, comparing that to the other vendors, when we were to go with one of the other 2, we would make the same number of purchases right now today, and we would own that equipment, and any replacement would be on us, be it a replacement for a damaged product, a replacement at 2.5 years, 5 years, whatever that may be. So again, you're getting that brand new technology, which I think all of you understand. You know, we listened to the conversation with the Board of Ed about the technology on computers, but we understand that that evolves. The body cameras that we looked at 3 years ago when we started really looking at these processes were vastly different then. I can only imagine that with how that system evolves, what it's going to be like in that 2.5 and 5 year period. So we get new technology, but also we save right now, or we would be saving about $14,000 per year, or $70,000, almost $75,000 over 5 years in the new equipment going into our cars. Right now, when we purchase our cruisers, we bundle in brand new camera systems into those cruisers. The reason we do that is because those cars are on the road for 5+ years. That technology again gets old. So when we think this out, we no longer have to buy, at least for a 5+ year period, buy any in-car cameras when we purchase those cruisers, because we have new technology. And that new technology then at 5 years is completely replaced again. So in theory, we may go up to 10 years without having to purchase any new in-car cameras. So again, that is a cost savings that ultimately we are going to also realize. Additionally, the unlimited cloud storage. This is an enormous piece of the product that Axon offers. Well, the other ones were server-based technology. We also know that server-based technology has its difficulties, its limitations. You have impact on your infrastructure for IT staff. You have memory space issues. You have possible IT repair costs. Already this past year, in the current system that we have, we've already had to replace and upgrade memory inside of that. All of that goes away with the cloud storage. But an additional piece of this is it allows you into evidence.com. So evidence.com is a cloud-based storage system that they utilize to manage all of your evidence. Now, what that means is if we have a case, and in that case we have body camera footage from 3 officers, we have car cameras from 3 officers, we also have cell block booking video, we may have surveillance video from a commercial establishment, a Ring doorbell. All of that can be uploaded into one spot in evidence.com and categorized with that case. So we have complete access to it, but not only do we have access to it and no longer have to put that onto server space, we also have the ability to utilize links to that. So the state's attorney's office, for example, when we have a case that goes to court, instead of burning 10 disks that go to the court system, to go to defense attorneys, to go to prosecutors, well, now we have the ability to have a link that's a secure link from evidence.com. So right now we're already having the ability with this product to reduce, I don't want to say eliminate, but to reduce the impact on our staff, on our IT infrastructure, on our need to keep making copies of multimedia devices. So that's just a win-win for everybody in that situation. So I think we have seen very clearly the product that Axon is offering is far better. The other piece is syncing of the devices. So for example, if we have multiple officers showing up to a scene, those officers, if cameras are in 30 feet of another camera that is activated, be it a car camera or a body-worn camera, they will activate together. Well, they're smart enough to realize that they are at an incident, they need to all be activated, and it also categorizes that information together. It also provides officers with an app on their phones, so they have the ability to catalog the information on there. And there's secure pieces to this, so there's audit trails. So nobody can go into any of these cases without being known. So we can do an audit trail and say for any single person that has gone in there to view the videos, we know who, when, and they are required to put a reason why. So it isn't open for anyone to go in, nobody can make changes. Supervisory staff is the only one who has access into those, not, the individual officer can go into their own, but Officer X can't go into Officer Y's video. So there's secure pieces inside of that. So I think, what we have presented this to both the Board of Police Commissioners, who overwhelmingly or unanimously endorse this, as well as the Board of Selectmen. So we truly feel that this is the best way to go moving forward. So cost-wise, Axon, we were able to negotiate a deal with them, a reduction of probably of almost $30,000 from when we first started the negotiation process to get that price down. But basically the first year, of what they are now offering us is $151,000, $151,601.08 for that first year. What we had them do is take all of the amounts that were going to be reimbursable by OPM because of legislation, which is 30% reimbursement for the body-worn camera systems and associated pieces of that. So we had them put that into the first year. The remaining 4 years of this 5-year plan include is $31,000, which is basically the amount for the unlimited storage each year, because no matter which vendor we went with, however we did storage or licenses, we'd have to pay an amount, but also extrapolating that in-car system cost over those 4 years. So basically the first year is 100% the body worn and entry into the evidence.com and cloud storage system for all the officers and all the licenses involved. And the 4 years after that includes the in-car cameras as well as the storage fees to maintain it. So that, again, that's what we are proposing. We without question, having looked at this. So the other piece is we have been demoing. So we have officers in the field for the past week and a half or 2 weeks that have been utilizing the camera because we want to kind of get our anomalies out of it and see what we think. And I will say this, the current system that we have for our in-car system, which is Panasonic, you know, we will have a download for a video and it may take us hours and hours to get that one video. Lieutenant Jazerski has been working very closely with a lot of these downloads. Within less than a minute, we're able to download, segment, copy, and get a video out if we need. So certainly light years ahead of where we are today. And I think moving forward, this is going to be an outstanding solution for the East Lyme Police Department.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mike. At this point, I guess I'll open it up to the members for questions. Yes, Rich Steele.
Yes, I just want to say kudos for the research that you did into the products, the trying out of the products, and the speed that you went through in getting this done. I'm very impressed. I have just a few questions from looking at the tally sheet from Axon. And this one might just be something that I'm really naive about, but there's a couple of instances, like for example, on page 2, the unlimitedevidence.com tap bundle, and I think that goes through multiple times, that there's a list unit price and then a net unit price. I don't know, somehow in my mind, I thought it would be reversed, that you'd have the lower price with the net price. And this isn't really all that important, but just curiosity on that one.
No, I will ask that question because that's certainly, yeah, that's something I do not have an answer to of how they broke those two up. I see exactly what you're saying, because if you look up when you get to the 3 8-bay docks, it's the opposite.
Right.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So it might just have been kind of maybe a typo in the bid or something. Yep. And then on page 8, I was looking at the different requirements for the different things. So the mobile data terminal requirements, it's looking for 25 gigs of free disk space, and then either Windows 7 or Windows 10 and the corresponding RAM requirements. Mm-hmm. Are we going to need upgrades in our computers?
And we already do. So this is something, this is a separate piece that we are having to address because in our in-car computer systems, and it's amazing when you start to break this down, the amount of technology that we actually have in cars, but the mobile data terminals, which run our CAD system, they are going to require that, and they are requiring, we're moving to those in our computers. So that is in process. So all of them will meet that requirement as part of the things we have to evolve to. So
okay,
it is underway.
Okay. And then I know that we had put some money towards more IT support services this last budget. And on page 9, there's at the top, additional considerations. In the event an agency is unable to support the IT requirements associated with installation, Axon reserves the right to charge more. I would presume our IT support is already in place.
Correct. Yes, and that basically, in the conversation I've had with the sales representative, that's really for agencies that have no IT support at all.
Right.
We have more than enough support right now with Star Computer, with what we are our partnership with them for the support they need to do. Axon in this quote does complete installation, but certainly there is a nexus to the IT support that's needed. But right now, we have that support with our in-car systems with Star as we speak. So
Okay,
that shouldn't be
fantastic.
impacted.
And then just a couple more questions on that same page when it's talking about the network consideration. I presume our network is sufficient for the upgraded systems that we're going to get?
Yes.
Oh, okay. And then just the last one, the clipper rip on the page 10. I would imagine that with our vehicles, it'll just be a clip and install the camera and not have to rewire the whole thing. It's in the vehicle.
Yeah, I'm just reading through it to make sure I'm completely digesting that. Yeah, so our radar systems aren't going to interfere with that. So if we're talking about that on the clip, it really should not be an issue because right now we already have the other systems in, and we also, when we purchase cars, we purchase the installation into it.
Right.
So
Right.
You know, our conversations with the salesperson is that these are all covered. These should not be issues.
Okay. Again, fantastic job on this. My hat's off to you guys. You all did a great job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from other board members? Ann Chicallo?
Yeah, I think it's really very thorough. Very impressed with the job that you did. I guess my first question is on, I don't know what page it is. It says East Lyme Police Department Fleet 2 Summary. Is that, I don't think it's numbered. It seems like it's page 2. And it talks about hardware.
Yes, for the
And
fleet.
it says,
Yep.
I guess I got a little confused because it's talking about 14 fleet cameras front facing and then 14 fleet cameras prison compartment facing.
Yes.
So I guess you're going to have 14 cameras in the cars. Is that correct? Or is it
So
gonna be...
we have 14 vehicles. Each vehicle in this system has 2 cameras. So you have a camera that is in the front of the car that goes outward, and then you have one that is in the prisoner compartment that videos inside that compartment. So when I say 14, those are those 2 bundled together. So
Okay.
in
And
theory, yes, that 28 should have been 56 because they're replacing both cameras in the car. I meant total systems when I said 14.
Okay, so right now you have the Panasonic unit, and they're going to be replacing it basically with the Axon. Is that
Exactly.
correct?
Right. Yep.
Okay. And then that will also sync up with the body cameras.
Yes, everything syncs as one system. Yes.
Okay, got it. And then another question regarding cloud storage.
Yes.
Who does East Lyme own that material? Because I know a
Yes.
lot of that information is going to be
So
confidential.
if at the end of 5 years we made a decision that, you know, we don't want to continue on with our relationship with Axon, it is in the contract that we own that documentation. So we would always have access to that, whether we maintain our relationship with them or not.
Okay. And then another question, if, let's say you have 3 officers on a scene, and it's my understanding that each camera will start if it's within, you said 30 feet?
30 feet, yes.
30 feet of the other camera. So will each officer then have access to that evidence in that case in the cloud?
They only have access to their own video. So if another officer, their camera videotaped to their vehicle, they would not have access to that. And there's a reason for that, because we don't want, we have to have an integrity in the system to say that somebody else didn't have access to do anything or change or tag, videos in a different way. So, and by the tagging, I mean, the officers have the ability to put notes with it or to tag it as a certain type. And that becomes important when it comes to redaction, because the system has set standards for the type of incident, how it's redacted. and the system does that on its own. So say we had, a 5-year period for a certain type of arrest, the officer tags it as that arrest, it stays for 5 years automatically. However, a random interaction with someone in the public that has no criminal aspect, no case, is only 90 days. So, how they tag it is based on their own, access to it. But one officer does not have access to another officer's video.
Okay. So another question, just talking about police reports, because I'm constantly requesting police reports. When you guys have to redact them, then using this Axon, you'll be able to do it more easily than having the secretary sit there and take the black marker and mark it off?
It's incredibly, when we watch the demonstrations and we, for example, went over to Groton Town Police Department, who's utilized this for 3 years. We met with their records person who went through their redaction. It has a smart redaction system where if you are looking at the video, you can click on faces that you want to redact, and it will track those faces and redact them throughout the video you're doing, rather than having to go through each portion of the video and redact it. So that alone is a tremendous benefit in time reduction. So again, the software is there. And what I want to, I think that's a great point, Ann, because, as this evolves and being that it's cloud-based, any updates to their software are automatically going to trickle down to us. And, we all know with computer-based things, there are updates all the time. And, we want the newest, best technology all the time, because that makes our job easier and we then give a better product.
So so that was for video. For also like written police reports, you can go through and say, I want this redacted.
No, because that wouldn't happen. There's nothing. So in our records management system, that redaction would be a different side. However, if you recall, we are moving to a new report system also. So there are different redaction templates inside of the next gen system, for example, we're moving to. So we're hoping we're able to recognize a completely different side of things. Across the board, I think what we're looking at is a myriad of ways to reduce that back end, old school need to do things. I want technology that makes it easier for everybody to do their job.
To work, yeah, exactly. So then, right now, you're still in the old police building, and they're going to be, renovating the new one shortly, hopefully soon, for you guys. And can this go forward if you're not in the new building?
Oh, yes. Yep. This has, the beauty of this is cloud-based. So as long as we have the ability, it's installed in the cars, and we have it's just those dock stations for the downloads and the charging of the body cameras inside the PD. That could be done anywhere because it just needs network connection and power. We're not going to have any impact on where we are at that point.
Okay, perfect. All right, let me see. I have some more questions. Okay, let's see. Oh, okay. So going forward, say in 5 years, how much will it cost? I know you're saying like 150 and then 31 for the next 4 or 5 years. Then after that, if you continue, do we know ballpark what it's going to be? Is it like 31,000?
The ballpark I was given, and again, that's an outstanding question because I had that same question myself. Axon, the answer, and I understand this from a corporate standpoint, they can't give you an idea of what they're going to be charging, but they were very clear that it would not be a hardware cost. So they believe it would be very similar to what we're paying for that yearly access, because it just would be a continuation of that similar service where you're doing the cloud storage, you're doing the replacement program, but they don't envision any hardware costs that you put into it. Unfortunately, just like with every vendor, nobody could tell you 5 years from now what they're going to charge for their product. So I think even across the board, if we went with one of the other products, we would be doubling because we're paying for the 100% of everything. So again, the best I could do on my conversation with them, because I was trying to narrow them down and get them to it, is there's no hardware cost involved as far as they envision it.
Okay. And then if, let's say you do go forward with them, do they continue where they're going to replace the cameras after like 2.5 years in the 5 year? Is that something that
would be the hope?
Okay.
This program for them has been in place for a couple of years. We currently do it with the tasers, which is also a product of this company. That has been outstanding because it allows us to then not have old technology, old products. So I think that's kind of the selling point that Axon has gone as a corporation gone forward with. So I don't see that ending because it's used throughout the nation. And I think that has been a huge selling point for their company. So I, just from a corporate standpoint, wouldn't see them going away from it if it's what gets people to their product.
Okay. Thank you. Let me see if there's anything else. Yeah, I think that was it. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, anybody else have questions for the chief? Yes, John.
John, you're muted.
Hear me now?
Yeah.
I had the same question Ann just asked about what happens after 5 years. But another question was the Axon Aware technology. I see that there's going to be someone back at the station who's going to be able to monitor what's going on in the field.
No, that is an add-on. That's not something that we ended up getting within this quote. There are many features. If you notice, the Axon Aware is one of those. The GPS coordinates is another. Those are options that their products can have, but we at this time didn't go with certainly trying to keep the costs somewhat, keep it in check. There's a whole list of catalog options we could add, but I didn't think it was really feasible at this time.
But down the road, you could add that if you wanted to.
Yes. Yep. Just as well as, I think if we're going to be adding options too, the GPS would be something in the future, because once the body cameras are activated, it would actually populate on a map in dispatch. So dispatchers would be able to see, hey, this officer has their body camera activated. So it just kind of a mental note that something's going on, they're interacting with somebody. But again, these are all costs that, when you, at the end of the day, when they kept adding up, we wanted to make sure we brought something forward which was efficient, but also economical.
Okay, another question is if the power is lost in East Lyme, do we have a generator that's large enough to handle the Axon system?
So that isn't a problem. The new building, the generator is part of that. The current building, has a generator as well.
Right.
The power needed for this system is nominal. It's cloud-based. So really, it's simply the networking of the cradle, which downloads the body cameras that are placed into it, and the charging of those. So that would be the only power requirements. Not much different than a residence, to be quite honest with you.
Okay, and one other question. The cameras that you have to recharge every once in a while, they hold a 12-hour charge. Is that correct?
So yeah, part of what has to happen is the body cameras have to be placed into the cradle in order to download from there.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things we've been kind of trying out. We've talked to these other departments just as a representation. New London, Groton Town, Groton City, Stonington are all in the system or moving to this system. So we've got some real world kind of conversations about what their experiences have been. None of them have had experiences with the inability to keep a charge in these units. There's a standby time and there's an active time. So if they're on standby or off, there's very little draw on the battery. So administrators, for example, one of the people that gave us a demonstration, who was a lieutenant, said he hadn't charged his in 30 days simply because, he has it off and on all the time, and he's not out on the road dealing with people. The people that are dealing with people on the road, the end of their shift, certainly have the ability to charge that and get it back up, and running without a problem. So that should not be an issue.
So what's going to happen is you're going to start with all the cameras at the same time. Say theoretically 12 hours go by and you're going to have to charge all the cameras again, or you're going to stagger them.
No, cameras are individually issued to officers. So they are embedded with that officer's identification information. It is that officer's camera.
Yep.
Because this is without question, the best way to do business. So that officer download at the end of their shift, they put it into the cradle. It downloads when they come back for the shift the next day. They get that camera out of the cradle. It's fully charged, and all of that data is downloaded off their camera. The whole trading off and sharing of cameras just, I think, there's so many failure points in that it's not worthwhile, as well as a department such as ours, celebrates Lyme, for example. Every officer's working. I have to have a camera that every officer can have at any time they deal with the public under this Public Act. So, we have to move forward with having individual officers with their own cameras and not, trading them off.
Okay, thank you.
John, Ann Santora or Peter, do you have any questions?
Yeah, I did, Camille, thanks. Chief, thanks for your presentation, very thorough. I did see the presentation that you gave to the Board of Selectmen, and you did provide a video there. And I have to tell you that the video was beautifully clear, minimal movement, and this is the body cam being worn. So it was very impressive. And I take it that this, Axon is, a leader in Connecticut in terms of supplying the cameras and the related services. And I guess nationally, would you say that it has that sort of national reputation?
Yes. Yep. I think if you start to take a look when you see body camera footage that's on the news anywhere, look up in that top right corner, a large majority will see the Axon symbol up there. And again, there's a reason for that because of the type of product, the quality. But now you throw in the unlimited storage and the replacement plan, I think it puts it, hands above the rest. And if anybody wants to see the video, if you allow me to screen share, I can play that clip for you so you can see it tonight. So.
And I did have a question about your requirements. So it sounds as though, based upon your conversations with other police departments, such as Town of Groton, et cetera, and knowing your own needs through the years, et cetera, you've established the requirements. The technology has been improving. But, obviously this is in getting the cameras and having them, this will fulfill the state legal statutory requirement to have them. So that's wonderful, and that's very important. But as you know, there's not a lot of meat on the bones of the Police Accountability Act. So I was wondering, with the Accreditation Commission, if they have promulgated any guidelines for you, or do you anticipate them to do that? I'm trying to get a sense of, the current picture of requirements seems you've got them, this looks like it fulfills them, but I'm thinking a little bit down the road, can we expect that, them
I think with the CALEA accreditation, certainly, the video aspect is an enormous part of it. And I think we had presented something to at least some of you individually at some point on what CALEA actually requires for your accreditation. And, there are hundreds of areas inside of law enforcement, you're building your activities, your policies. Certainly video is a portion of that. I'd also say that while this is part of the accountability bill and, there may not be the biggest teeth in it, certainly you also don't want to be the outlier that doesn't go to the technology, and God forbid you have an incident that happens that wasn't captured. I think across the board, universally, law enforcement agencies and officers themselves, even the ones that were not in favor of body cameras to begin, have become in favor of it because they see that there's enormous benefit, not just to the accountability of the public and the officer's behavior, but also for your investigations. How easy it now makes it because you have that documentation of the conversations you have with people, the incidents you went to, rather than trying to sometimes go by memory. And, it cuts down on the frivolous complaints against officers because no, we immediately can go to the video and say, no, this is exactly what happened, and, show people what happened. I think that there's so many benefits to it. So I think, as you're saying, yes, there's not a lot of teeth in the bill, but certainly the benefits, I think, far outweigh the,
I wasn't questioning that. Mine was more of a, what if they start adding additional requirements down the pipe? That was really the point of my question.
And I don't know. I don't think we have anything on our landscape to say, if that's going to happen or what's going to happen with that. I haven't heard anything from at least the state legislative level of additional pieces that they want to add. However, I think this is really kind of something, if you look, this has been in place for a couple of years now where they've been trying to get every department. They've mandated the state police to go to it. So it was only a matter of time before every municipality would have to be there as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you completely. Clearly, it's a benefit to the public and it's a benefit to the police departments and to lawyers and, prosecutors, et cetera, et cetera. So absolutely. But yeah, just trying to get a sense of how the requirements are formulated. But it sounds like you've done a ton of work with respect to discussing it with other comparable communities and those that are using the system right now.
Well, I think,
yeah.
And no, I think one, too, and that's a great point because, to be very honest with you and I guess being a little bit of a shopper too here, that part of our conversation with the other departments is the forethought of in the future of buying in bulk. If we have the ability to have a conversation with a company to say, hey, all of Southeastern Connecticut or all these departments in Southeastern Connecticut are on the same platform using the same product, what kind of leverage do we have to negotiate? When it comes to the cloud storage, or like Ann asked the question, in 5 years. Well, the good thing is 5 years from now, we, New London, Stonington, Groton City, are all going to be in that same ballpark of having to renegotiate those deals. So do we have better leverage if we're all in that same position?
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Well, thanks. And yeah, it seems like this company is a cut above the rest. So, and just out of curiosity, I mean, I know you had the 3 bids, but I mean, what would you venture to say in terms of the number of companies that, do this very specialized, provide this specialized product and service?
I think, in Connecticut, you really have the 3. There's a couple out there that are sporadic here and there. So I don't really know, you get information from them all the time, but when you actually delve into some of their products and the depths of them, it doesn't seem like it provides the overall package that I think is sufficient. This isn't, I think a lot of people, unfortunately, when they say body cameras, think, hey, it's simple. You just put a camera on a person's body, it records. But when you talk about the technology, the connectivity of the pieces, the redaction, the storage, it's monumentous, really feat to kind of get all this stuff done. So that's why I think you have very few vendors that are competitive at the very least, in this realm. And I think, really 2 of them are people we looked at. Panasonic's a little bit behind, I think, with the technology. WatchGuard is, another one that is forefront, but I think definitely what sells Axon over WatchGuard is the replacement and the unlimited storage. I think those are 2 huge pieces.
Well, thanks. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann. Peter, you unmuted yourself. Did you have something to say?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm going to repeat what a lot of other people said. I'm very impressed with the presentation. The technology is fascinating, and I think it's, obviously in the best interest of the police department, the police officers, to have the body cameras, given our environment. My question is, are we going to hear this Axon product compared to the other 2? I just want to know if are you going to have an opportunity to just talk about how this proposal compares to the other 2? That was really my question. Or are we only focused on Axon at this point?
Was that a question for me or for the other people in finance? Like, I had a hard time hearing you, Pete.
Okay, it is for you,
okay.
Chief Nicholson. I just wanted you to comment on the other 2 proposals.
Sure, and I think, as I started by really discussing this, not apples to apples, and that's one of the things we found early on in the process of looking at the different vendors. While, if we could go out and say bid for product X and they all had the same product and across the board we can compare prices, but that unfortunately wasn't the case here because it was so substantially different what each of these offered, especially again when you're going into the unlimited storage and the replacement of those products. So, just in my mind, the comparison of WatchGuard. WatchGuard was about $150,000 for the same physical camera product, but it was a server storage and it also did not have replacement. So if you had to replace that WatchGuard product, let's just say after your 5-year period, right there, you're paying $300,000 which is similar to what you're paying for Axon, and you're getting new technology throughout, as well as unlimited cloud storage. So if you want to kind of bring them up to the same level, I think right there you're seeing that Axon is a cut above what WatchGuard was offering us. Panasonic, I'll be very honest with you, the state police right now are the only agency that is utilizing that. And from conversations with a lot of people in the state police, that's because it's legacy in their system. That's why we had that in our cars. And the size and bulk of the contract the state has with Panasonic makes it very difficult to change, vendors. But their product lags significantly behind. If you look at the parameters, the pieces of it, the ability, just the redaction software or the integration, they don't have cameras that sync together. So there's so many pieces of it. I think the technology just isn't right for us, and it doesn't provide us with what we need to have out there in the field. So I would say WatchGuard, the technology is good. Ultimately, the price is very similar without the replacement and unlimited storage. Panasonic, it just significantly lagged behind.
And you also said that a lot of the regional departments are using Axon as well, and you're hoping at some point to kind of coordinate that. And
right, and that was part, the part I was saying about, I like to not reinvent the wheel, and New London is just moving to it right now. They just had their training. They're just doing the outfitting. Groton Town has had Axon body cameras for 3 years, is moving towards the in-car cameras. Groton City and Stonington are both working towards moving towards it. We spent some extensive time in Groton looking at their systems, looking at the back end side of it with the software, really having conversations with their users, with their administrative staff, with their records people, really to make sure that this is the right path to go down. And I think, learning and listening to their experiences has been crucial in this, because, had the same conversations with people that use WatchGuard, that, we know from Panasonic, having used it, the limitations of it, with WatchGuard knowing, hey, these are the pros and cons, and comparing that to what we're looking at with Axon. And really have had nothing but positive comments about the Axon experience, as well as their support, which I think is huge. One of the things that Groton Town, points out to us over and over, if there's any problems at all with one of their units, they go online, they create a ticket, Axon immediately mails out a brand new camera, they mail the old camera back. So that replacement takes place seamlessly, rather than having to worry about staff having to, work to take care of that situation. It's a very, very quick and easy product, and their customer service has been outstanding. And again, I think that's one of those things, the more people we have in our area that are going towards it, the better off we're going to be too. We can only ensure that we're going to get better, better customer service. The other thing we're looking towards, and we didn't mention this, is in our switch to next gen for our records and CAD system, is looking towards ways to integrate these systems. And that conversation is taking place that, Axon does work with different CAD and RMS vendors to really work to seamlessly do that. Because ultimately our goal is, in that package for our case files, having everything together. And evidence.com, Axon, and NextGen, if we can make case files that are simple and cloud-based or just computer-based, that we can easily segment stuff, it certainly makes us a whole lot more efficient, saves a lot of time, and that's everybody's benefit.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Ann Shapiro.
I have one more question. All the police departments at this point, due to the police accountability, are probably scrambling to get body cameras.
Yes.
So my question is, what's the time frame to get the body cameras, and are they available?
Yep.
And
So,
how long would it
part
take to
of the
implement?
negotiations that I did with Axon was trying to get that best price, and part of that conversation was for their corporate year trying to get something in place by January. So they have given us assurances that as long as we have the approvals from the town, and everything's contingent upon that, obviously, they would be able to move forward. What I would like to do is move forward on the quicker side of things to really reduce that competition, because everybody's going for that same product. But also, when it comes down to the reimbursement from OPM for the state, that 30% reimbursement, there's only a $4 million pot of money that is going to be there. So I want to be ahead of that game to say, we're ready to go. We're ready to get that reimbursement, because the reimbursement only comes once your system is installed, in place, in use. then you apply for that money from the state. Now, certainly the conversations have already started with OPM. We've already had that conversation. We know, we're in the queue to get moving with that. But it's a race. And I think we all know that when it comes to state reimbursement, we want to be in the head of that race, not behind it, because that 30% certainly is important to the town.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just have a couple of questions, one for Chief and one for Anna, and they're finance questions. First, Chief, remind me of the amount of money that you said we would save by not having to outfit 2 new cars every year with new cameras.
Sure, because so each year we spend about $14,000 for the in-car system. So we buy 2 cars. So for those 2 cars is about $14,000. That includes the camera systems as well as configuration. So right now in the Panasonic system, we buy the cameras, they're installed, and then they have to bring somebody up to configure that into our system. Something again that doesn't happen with with Axon in their system. So really, in essence, it's $14,000 per year or $7,000 per vehicle.
And what line item is that in your budget, in your operational budget?
It's not operational. That's your capital when we buy the vehicles. So it's all bundled into that.
Okay, so each camera and all the related software is
It's all part of the purchase of the vehicle.
Seven.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Camille, the police vehicles are purchased through the acquisition program every year.
I just wasn't sure if that was included in the vehicle acquisition program or the capital, or if it was a line item expense in the budget.
Yeah.
So,
go ahead.
So I'm thinking that, when you think about it, the $31,000 annual fee that we're looking at could be is really reduced by $14,000.
Correct.
Is that a correct assessment then?
It would be, yes.
Okay.
Well,
Right.
and again, that money's coming out of the acquisition. So yes, it's a $14,000 expenditure we're not having to make.
Right. Okay. And the next question, Anna, is for you. I was a little bit confused when I was reading the resolution. First of all, thanks, Mike. I mean, great job, for you and Dana and all the other lieutenants. I think you said lieutenants that were involved with putting this together. Great job. Makes sense to me. I think it's a good move. But I just had a question with regard to the financing. Why are we approving up to $279,000 when the immediate need is $151 coming out of a contingency account? But there's no mention in this document about where the remaining funds are coming from. So maybe you could speak to that, Anna. If we approve up to and including 279, don't we have to identify with the source of funds for that somewhere?
So the reason that we're we include the appropriation of the full amount is because essentially we're entering into a contract that's going to be paid over multiple years, and it's the issue of continuing it beyond the first year. So that's the reason we're doing it that way.
Right, but the remaining money isn't going to come out of contingency every year. Where is it going to come out of?
So that's correct. So it's similar to when we do the acquisition program. We appropriate the full amount, but in each year's budget, we budget 1/5 of it. So it would be similar. This will be handled in a similar way. Where are we going to put the $31,000? We'll work that out when we come up with the proposed 122 budget.
Well, I imagine it would be in the operational budget, right? So if we approve up to 279 this evening, then we have to realize during the next budget cycle that we can't touch 31,000 of that budget for that purpose because we've already approved it, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, so I just want the board members to understand that. If we approve up to 279,000 tonight, that means that we're locked into the 30,000 in the operational budget for the next 5 years. So that cannot be touched.
I think just to point out too, Camille, is once the town signs a contract, you're doing that in essence because you're agreeing to the $31,000 over that 4-year period. Right.
Okay. That's all I had. Anybody else have any final questions?
Do you want to see the video or we
You do have the ability to share the screen,
I
Mike,
do,
and
okay.
why don't you? Because it really is very clear, that camera. The vision is remarkable.
hold on. Can you see?
Yeah.
Yes.
Now it's a fire alarm, so it's a little loud, but we did this so we don't have to redact any people, make it easier.
Is that what is this, the Salmon Brook Commons? Is that what it's called?
Vladimir.
What was that?
Latimer Brook Commons?
Yep. We just wanted to
Yeah,
give you an idea of the stability, of the clarity of it, the sound of it. You know, also how it really doesn't bounce with the movement, but everything is very clear.
Yeah, that's remarkable. Thank you.
But just, you know, just to give you an idea, you know, again, amazing, you know, clarity and quality on the stability of the video, and you know, again, just overall a very good product.
So if there's no further questions, I'll entertain a motion. Anna provided to us. Somebody would like to read that? Yes, Ann
Neil?
Sandro.
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, Ann. Rich, do you have a question?
I don't have a question, but just a couple of points of wording in the motion. Because it states for the purpose of purchasing body camera equipment. And I'm wondering if we should state it as body and vehicle camera equipment with software and cloud storage, or if that's not necessary.
Well, I believe that the description says, as more particularly described in the 5-year quote summary. So I think if it references back to the detail that were covered.
Oh, okay. And then I just have one other question too, is that when it's 1, 2, 3, the third paragraph, when grant funds are received, they are to be deposited to the general fund. Can we state that it would go back to the contingency fund, because the amount that we had tried to allocate for this in the contingency fund is being exceeded with the amount of this contract?
So that is a good point. When I looked at that, when I read the general fund, to me, that means the undesignated fund balance. So I don't know if that means something different to you, Anna, the general fund.
Well, I was identifying the general fund because that's where the contingency fund is, within the general fund.
So is it okay to make it clear? Because there are many accounts that feed the general fund then. So I do like your suggestion, Rich, to recommend that goes back into the contingency fund, the contingency account of the general fund.
Yeah, so after general fund, just add contingency account.
Okay. Thank you.
So Anna, you mean parenthetically after the words general fund?
Yeah, you can, yeah, parentheses, contingency account and parentheses
Okay.
should fit.
Okay. All set, so I can go ahead, move here. We'll
Thanks, Rich.
move- Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So reading the motion, whereas the Board of Finance has determined that a true and very real need exists for the acquisition of body cameras for the police department as recommended by the Police Commission and approved by the Board of Selectmen. Be it resolved to approve an appropriation in the amount of $279,549.32 for the purpose of purchasing body camera equipment, more particularly described in the 5-year quote summary prepared by Axon Enterprise Incorporated. The acquisition of said equipment for purchase for a total price of $279,549.32 to be payable in annual installments as follows over a period of 5 years. Year 1, $151,601.08. Years 2 through 5, $31,987.06 each. The first selectman is authorized in the name and on behalf of the town to execute and deliver any documents that may be required in connection with said transactions. Whereas the state of Connecticut has stated there will be grant funds in the amount of 30% reimbursement for said body camera purchases. The 30% reimbursement will be based upon the year 1 amount of $151,601.08, estimated to be $45,480.32. When grant funds are received, they are to be deposited to the general fund, parentheses, contingency account. The first selectman or his designee is authorized in the name and on behalf of the town to execute and deliver any documents that may be required in connection with the grant application and reimbursement. Whereas the town maintains a contingency account in the general fund, which has enough resources available to make the year 1 payment in the amount of $151,601.08. Therefore, move to transfer $151,601.08 from account 01-01-120-200-500 parentheses contingency to an account to be established titled PS Body Cam, Police Body Cams. This resolution is passed under the guidance of Executive Order 7S with no town meeting and being less than 1% of the current budget.
Thank you, Ann. I have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Thanks, Rich Steele. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Seeing no hands and hearing no one, I'll call for a vote. We'll do this one by one. I'll call out for your vote. Ann Santoro,
Yes.
John Birmingham,
Aye.
Ann Chichello,
Aye.
Rich Steele,
Yes.
Peter DeRosa. His hand went up. I'm sure he would say aye.
Aye.
Very good, thanks. And I myself am aye. That means motion is approved unanimously, 600. Chief and Mike Masick and I think the others dropped off the call, but thank you for your time and your in-depth explanation about this program.
Thank you very much for all your supports, and I definitely want to, definitely thank Lieutenant Masick, Lieutenant Jazierski for their hard work and, helping me bring this forward. So certainly going to be great for the town.
Yes, it will. Very good. Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
With that, I am going to call for just a 5-minute break because Ann Santor, no, I was saying bye. Okay, 5-minute break, and then we'll come back and we just have 2 remaining items to deal with. So the time is 8:51. Let's come back at 8:56 to finish up. Okay, everyone? Thanks. Okay, the time is now 8:57. We will resume the meeting. We are recording. Next up on our list, under new business, is approving the 2021 meeting schedule. Our recording secretary, Karen Simitric, I believe, put this together for us, and this is true to our schedule in that every date here referenced is the second Wednesday of the month. There are no conflicting holidays with this schedule for next year. So, if nobody has any questions or concerns with that schedule, yes, Ann Chicallo.
I was wondering if the first two, January 13th, 2021 and February 10th, 2021, if we could change them to the 14th and the 11th, just the following day. I'm unavailable those 2 dates.
For those Wednesdays,
Yeah,
and you would like to schedule them for Thursday.
yes.
So I think it's okay to miss a meeting or two. That is kind of a slow period for us generally, but then I thought summer was a slow period for us as well. We didn't get a break. I mean, I think that we might run into problems with other. Anna, how many people can run a Zoom meeting at the same time on our account?
I believe just one.
I think we got 2 now.
Is Anna, are
We have
you,
2.
Mark, this,
sorry?
We have 2 now, 2 accounts.
We do have 2 accounts, so we can run 2 concurrent meetings on the same evening?
We think so. We just signed up for the second one because there's been a lot of meetings, but we think we're going to be able to do 2 meetings. Yeah. Where's the
Well,
problem?
I would personally be in favor of keeping the Wednesday nights because that's what the public is used to. I certainly understand if you can't make those, Anne. Sometimes we don't even schedule them because that's right before the heavy budget season comes up. But
The
How
only
does it-
reason I was asking is one is my birthday and one is my daughter's birthday. So I just,
yeah,
that's just a personal thing. But that's fine. If you want to go forward with it, then I will, I'll attend.
well again,
Or not, depending on how
yeah,
it works.
yeah. I mean, if it was my birthday, I have been known to skip a Wednesday meeting when it's been my birthday for sure. So then I think we should just keep it for Wednesday. How does everybody else feel?
I agree.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, I agree. I think we just have to remember now that Ann told us, we have to remember that it's her birthday and recognize it. That she showed
You can all sing happy birthday to me that day.
Which one is yours and which one is Amy's?
I'm in January. I'm a Capricorn.
All right.
I'm writing that down on my paper. You can't always rely on Facebook to give you a little reminder there.
I'm always happy if I get another year under my belt,
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So, can somebody make a motion to approve this calendar?
I'll move to approve the calendar for calendar year 2021 for Board of Finance meetings.
Thanks, Pete. Is there a second?
Second.
Thanks, John. All those in favor, please raise your hand and say yay.
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 Opposed? Okay, we got a late yay there. So we have 6 yays, unanimous. Thank you, everyone. And last up on our list, under old business, is a special appropriation and transfer for human resources in the amount of $3,576.18. Mark, do you want to speak to that?
I think it was on your agenda last month, and you had one question, I was told, that I should stick around and answer something about the COG getting a grant. We did not go ahead and hire anybody at the COG level. Of course, our COG was shut down for 6 of the last 8 months, working from home. And frankly, when human resource coordinator comes aboard, it's going to be more like an overviewing compliance kind of a position. I can't imagine any human resource person from the COG coming into individuals' towns to talk about their particular retirement plan or their union contracts and all the things that go along with our human resource coordinator. It'd be more like compliance for the sexual harassment training that we're all required to have, or other OSHA requirements, etc. We get a lot of that support from CCM now, but it'll be good to have someone local and pulling all that together, and keeping us abreast of what's going on with this at the state level. You know, there's also these I hope podunk isn't too offensive to those people from these small towns, like way up on 395. Yeah, I think it's Jewett City, or one of those towns near Jewett City, that their town hall is only open 2 days a week. I know, like Lyme only has like 3 employees in the whole town. So, you know, this human resource person might be a good resource for some of these towns that don't even have much, and be looking for that kind of help. But that's not going to take away or replace or be in lieu of all the work that Rebecca is doing in our town. We're asking for 3 hours more a week. I mean, $3,500 a year here. We got a Board of Ed that's over $1 million over budget, and we're talking $3,000 here. We have, I don't have the latest, maybe Anna does, the latest number of employees we have, but there's a whole lot of moving parts between people coming in, coming off of probation, all the union issues and grievances, and of course retirement plans. And then all the people that actually left our town employment, went somewhere else, but now they're, you know, it's 20 years later, they're trying to pull together their retirement plans and still hold on to ours. So they come back to the town looking for services as well. Rebecca's a great resource. She's asking for a few more hours a week. She's leaving too much on her plate, and frankly, penny wise, pound foolish in this case. Let's make sure our human resource coordinator has enough time to do her job, and it's been viewed that this will help.
Okay, thank you, Mark. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody have any questions or comments?
Yes, in the minutes from the last meeting, I believe it was asked of Becky if she could pull together comparative numbers and that she would get them, but I don't know that we received any of that information. I think it was numbers of the various increased duties.
She has a number of duties that she's doing, and then we're putting COVID on top of all that. I think you just need to trust your management and, you know, people running the town, that we need some extra hours.
So I will say I can certainly appreciate ebbs and flows of different positions. This is a professional position. I know, you know, when Anna puts in 70 hours a week, she's not getting paid for an extra 30 hours, I'm sure. So sometimes it's just a time management issue, where if there's a couple of more retirements in one month, maybe there won't be any in the subsequent month. So everything kind of evens out over time. So I'll just say at this time, I would just like to stick with the budget that we just recently passed. I mean, we're talking about just 2 months ago, passing a budget, and to ask for more at this point, I think, is premature. And I would like to just stick with the budget that we have, you know, considering the unknown, still unknown circumstances that we may face. Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
Yeah, one of the questions that I asked last month was how our human resources staffing compared to other towns of similar size, whether we were on par with them, under them, or over them. And I know HR has a certain number of HR staff for X number of employees. And I'm just curious where we fit into that ratio.
Towns similar to our size were under the ratio. Most have a full-time staffer. Ours is 30 hours a week, I think.
Okay, and for how many employees?
Anna, do you have the exact number?
Well, I don't
Yeah,
even,
so we have, let's say, 123, 125 full-time equivalents. And we have part-time seasonal. We peak up in the summer months when we have all the different parks and rec programs. And like this week, we had an additional 70 for all the poll workers that work the election, but that's just
yeah, I was more thinking the FTEs.
kind of thing. But
125.
so for
That's
for
all the
full-time
retirees.
equivalents, it's 125.
Mhm.
Does that answer your question, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, it would, to do it right would be to know what the other towns are. I always thought it was like 1 to 100 is what I always understood. I don't know if that's still accurate.
Well, I think it's worthwhile to remember too that a few years back, there was an HR position that was 20 hours per week. And when that got split into two different positions, there were another position that was created, one 20 hours a week for HR, and then part of that responsibility was pulled out of that job, and a new position was created just to do the bank reconciliations, which I guess used to be associated with that job. So there was, 28 hours created from a 20-hour job, and now we just gave them 10 hours extra. So now we're at 38 versus 20. And would you be able to say with certainty that the volume of work has doubled, Anna?
So a couple of things, if I might. So I believe that the original HR position that the town started was a full-time position. It was around 2006. It was a 37.5-hour position. Several years down the road, it was reduced to a 20-hour position, but the position was a 28-hour position, meaning devote 20 hours a week to HR and then the 8 hours a week to working on our bank and tax reconciliations. So then when the individual that had the 28-hour position was looking to retire, that's when we split it out. HR, one component, and then the bank reconciliation about 8 hours a week. Then what happened at the point in time that we hired Rebecca at the 20 hours a week, that's when everything started to change. We started seeing a peak up in retirements, and along with the peak up in retirements are new hires. And we've actually, it's been very interesting the last couple of years, because we've actually seen a peak in people just leaving to go to other jobs or for whatever reason. So in addition to retirees, we've actually had staff turnover, which is something that we hadn't really had to deal with much at all, if any, in the past. Sometimes what we're starting to notice is some of the younger workers that we're hiring, they're not making the municipal job a career job. They're moving on quicker. So we've seen a shift in that as well. So, and I mean, last month when I received the statement on the pension plan, we hit a 6-figure number for payout on retirements. It's been creeping up and up monthly, yearly. But, you know, those are just a few comments that I have.
Okay. Thank you, Anna. Anybody else?
So just to clarify, so if this is approved, Rebecca would go up to 33 hours per week, is that correct?
So what her intention is to have the ability to work up to the 33 hours a week if need be. So like if 1 week she only needs to work 31 hours, that's all she'll work.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, John.
To me, you know, we're just talking about $3,500 here, and as opposed to voting it down, I'd rather see Rebecca come before us next meeting and tell us exactly what's taking up all the time and why she needs, you know, the 3 extra hours, and to defend her position on why she needs the extra 3 hours and what takes up that time. So I'd just rather have her come before us and speak to us about it instead of saying, you know, at this point, we're not going to approve it. So we have more information on it.
Okay, well, I think pretty much she outlined 13 different areas that were causing her to, I mean, I don't know what she would say that's different than what's listed on this paper. And again, I'm not doubting the amount of work, you know, and the ebbs and flows. I'm just saying, I think we ought to stick to the budget that we just passed. And yes, this is only $3,500, but I believe at the last Board of Selectmen meeting, was it Flanders Fire Department came forward with a request to hire an admin assistant. It wasn't approved that night. I'm not really sure why. I didn't listen to the whole meeting, but I think if everybody starts coming to us and asking for more, then that 3,500 could easily turn into some multiple of that. And so I don't know how to be fair after the process has already been everything's been vetted and approved just 2 months ago. So I don't really know how to be fair and to say, you know, what's required and what's not. So that's why, you know, I just stand with saying no at this time. You know, as you probably realize, John, when we say no, sometimes they just keep coming back, you know, so we could always, you know, talk about it another time, but I think this has been on our agenda for 2 months now, right?
Yes. Well, you know, she gave us a list of 13 items that takes up her workload, but we don't know from these items how much time she spends on each one.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes, Rich Steele. Oh, I'm sorry, Rich. John
Finish
wasn't
up, John.
done
I'll
yet.
follow up to you.
Go ahead, Rich.
I tend to agree with John because Rebecca was at our last meeting and Kevin was there in Mark's place, and it was deferred to have Mark be here to help explain. And as John mentioned, a no vote is one thing, but if she's not here to plead her case, I think he's got a good point about this list of 13. What's the hourly amount that plays into it? And then we just heard, well, you know, it could be 33 hours a week, but it might be 30 hours a week or 31 hours a week. And it seems to me to make sense to have her come back and actually provide some more detail on what, you know, was sort of promised to us last time.
Yeah, true. Okay. I mean,
She's
I'd
not
be
going
willing.
to come back. She's not going to come back, folks. She gave you what her job requirements are and what she needs to do. She's running out of time, okay? And it's not the job of the Board of Finance to time manage her, to tell her she's spending too much time over here and she should better use her assets, better use her 30 hours over here. She's running out of time. You're forgetting, and I don't know where the 2 months comes from. We put this budget together last January. So it was 10 months ago we put the budget together in our needs. The world's turned upside down since then, especially in the human resources situation. We've had a lot, she's spending a lifetime on COVID and Department of Labor, and we all know the contradictions in the law. You take 2 weeks off or you get 12 weeks family medical. So she's been our resident expert with that, also dealing with each individual case. That's the pylon right now that we're dealing with, is all the COVID cases. She came here and told you, she introduced herself, she told you what she does. You have a list of responsibilities, 13 you say. I'm telling you that she's running out of time. And when it comes back to us in a grievance because we overlooked something or we didn't provide something or whatever, it is what it is. It's okay. Listen, vote it down. If you think we can't afford, because that's your job, we can't afford $3,600, in light of all the work that's being done in the Human Resource Department by one person during COVID on a budget that was delivered 10 months ago, and things have changed, then vote it down. She'll get what she can get done. And what she can't get done, we'll either pay for it later or our employees will have to sit around waiting for their paperwork.
Mark, can you tell us how much comp time she's accumulated?
I don't keep the comp time. I think Anna,
Well, she
you might have an
reports to
idea,
you.
right?
She reports to you, doesn't she?
Anna, do you have an idea?
You know what, I'm sorry, I don't have
Yeah.
what her comp time balance is.
Okay, so we don't know what the comp time balance is. We don't have information that we asked for last month. We've got the first selectman disagreeing with me on when the budget was approved.
Well, it wasn't approved in September. You said
Well,
2 months ago.
May, but
It was
2
approved by
months.
the voters in May.
I'm saying that you, after the budget was approved, you came back to us like the next month or 2 months to ask for more money. 2 months after the budget was approved, you came back and asked for more money. I'm like, you know what? Why do we go through the exercise of doing the budget? I'm a firm no. I mean, let's just vote on this tonight. I think the first selectman made his point. He wants this off the table and he'll deal with it. So let's just take the vote. That would be my preference. How does the rest of the board feel? Would you like to vote tonight or would you like to wait? I'll just call on people. John, you made it your preference to wait another month to have Becky.
Well, given for what Mark said, I have to agree with him. I'd like to have her come before us again, but she came before us last time. But how long can she wait? You know, if this doesn't get approved, is she going to put in for overtime? It's going to cost us even more money. You know,
No.
We try to keep our employees happy, and you keep saying what's fair to other people that come before us. Well, we take each one on a case by case business. So
Yeah, no, that's a game I don't want to get involved with. I don't want to show any preference.
We're looking at her right now, and I think it's maybe some people don't agree with me, but I think $3,500 isn't a lot to ask for, and I'm sure she deserves it, all the work she has to do. So my vote would be approve it.
Okay, let's go around. Ann Santora, would you like to vote on this evening or postpone it until next month?
Well, John, I'm sort of hearing to be honest, two things coming from you. One is that you need more information, and then you would have approved it this evening. So, I mean, I think we have to decide if we need more information or not, or has pretty much everything been laid out. I'm of a mind, in my mind, I was kind of ready, set, go last month on this because I feel as though Becky's doing a pretty darn good job with all that's being thrown at her in this COVID environment. And I think this office, this department of human resources is so critical. I'd hate to see some sort of situation where she doesn't feel remunerated appropriately, considering the responsibilities and serious responsibilities that she has. I mean, we're talking about, very much legal issues, labor law issues, et cetera, et cetera. So, and for me, it was a relatively modest amount, the 3 hours, and her salary to me is relatively moderate. And I felt as though she enumerated quite a few things. I know Camille had wanted, perhaps more information about what's happened in the last couple of years, and also asked about the help we could potentially get from the Southeastern Connecticut COG, which looks like, a dead end essentially because of not hiring that person and because that person's role wouldn't be appropriate here anyway. So, I just think as a board, I think if some folks feel they need more information, let's be specific this evening with what that is and, ask it of her. I personally don't feel I need a great deal more information. It seems to me her responsibilities are pretty difficult. And she has to be very careful about the kinds of decisions she's making. They're very, very critical. I'm not saying other departments aren't critical, but this one really is. And I think that's why we've changed this position. We had it one way years ago before my time. It morphed into something else, and it's come back. And I think most towns are going in the direction of having that full-time HR person. So I liked Anna's, point that there's a kind of like, okay, up to 33 hours. It may be that, the next 6 months are really stinky for her and she needs all those hours, and then it may level more later. Perhaps this is something too, with Camille mentioning it being in our budget last year. Maybe we just revisit this next budget season, but this to me seems to be a reasonable stopgap approach because of COVID, and we've seen those effects. I mean, whether it's Board of Education or the firefighters or whatever, it's definitely here and it's affecting us. So, yeah, I mean, we can re-examine the appropriateness of those hours into our next budget season. Maybe we need less. I mean, who knows? Maybe there's another person that comes on board. I have no clue. But I think as a stopgap right now, it's sensible to me. So, again, if the board needs more information, let's be, crystal clear on that. I think we were in kind of a fog about it, and not necessarily anyone's particular fault, but we were a little bit of a fog because we didn't have information last time about, the COG and this and that. So, if we're clear on what we need, okay, I personally am ready to roll, but, I'm willing to listen to others. So that's what I think.
So I'm not sure what you want to do, Ann. Do you want to vote tonight or do you want to postpone it? I'm trying to get a consensus of whether we should just vote on this tonight or postpone it.
Well, I mean, I'd like to vote on it this evening, but if 5 of the 6 of us are feeling we need more information and don't want to vote it down, something like that, then I'm amenable to that. That's what I'm saying.
The question is, Mark just said she's not going to come back before us. If she's not going to come back before us, why postpone it? Do we know if,
Well,
Mark,
Okay.
Mark, you still there?
All right, here's what we're going to do, folks, because
Okay.
we could go around and around. I think we all have our views of how we feel about this. We've gotten input from her superior, Mark, and Anna Johnson, the finance director. Let's vote on this tonight. If it remains an issue over the next couple of months, come back. come back and ask again. But if, you know, I mean, I don't know if it's right for Mark to speak on Becky's behalf if she does or doesn't want to come back. I mean, I guess I'll take his word for it that she won't come back. I don't know. But let's just vote on this tonight. If it becomes an issue,
Camille,
bring it back.
Camille,
Yes.
you know, if we broadly look at this, kind of like the overtime for the dispatchers, that is chronically under budgeted each year. And as we were talking with Chief Finkelstein, that maybe they need to put some more money into that budget. And then at the beginning of our meeting, Anna had provided the board, and particularly to Anne, the COVID-related expense sheets. This is a minor amount of money in terms of the total budget. And I agree with you that it was shortly after the budget was approved, be it 2 months, 4 months, what have you. But if Anna could maybe perhaps track these additional COVID costs within that position, you know, since they're stated here, I think 3 different points relate to COVID, that we could see if that is something that is just an anomaly in the HR position, or if it's, you know, a major factor in the change there. That it seems surprising to me that Rebecca wouldn't be able to come again next month to present, or why she wasn't here tonight when this was on the agenda. That's a mystery to me. But for the amount of money that we're talking and the way that Anna can track the additional COVID expenses, you know, I'm not thrilled about a change in the budget this soon after it was approved, but it's not unique in that aspect that budgets don't accurately predict things. So that's my 2 cents worth before we get to a vote.
Just a quick question. Is that something that we can get reimbursed for if she's doing work due to COVID and it's exclusively due to COVID? Is that something you get reimbursed for?
Yes, Dana.
So I'll just point out the report that I provided you tonight on the COVID expenses. If you look on the top portion of what we submitted to the state for the CRF program, the overtime reimbursement of the $1,334, that's actually for hours that were worked by Rebecca between July 1st and June 30th that exceeded her 30 hours a week that was budgeted. So when under these programs, you can only request reimbursement for what you spend that's in excess of what you already have budgeted for the position. So since that was a 30-hour-a-week position, during that period of time, we tracked that amount over her 30 hours a week. And we actually paid her for it because at that point in time, her position was budgeted in the finance department, and I had some part-time assistance funding available. So that's how we paid her for the extra hours. If we had not paid her, if she just accrued comp time, then we wouldn't have been able to submit for any reimbursement because you can only submit to get reimbursed for expenditure, expenses that, you've made. That's how those programs work.
So can we do that going forward? If we keep it at the 30, can we get reimbursed again going forward?
No, because her regular hours are 30. So the fact that she's been accruing comp time, we wouldn't be able to submit any of that because we haven't paid her. She's accrued comp time.
I thought you just said that you had paid her for those hours. I'm confused. I'm sorry.
Up through June 30th. Because through June 30th, the position was budgeted in the finance department budget. Within my budget, I had some part-time, part-time hours funding. So that's how I was able to pay her, because I had some funding left in that account. So that's why I just paid her, because the thought of, accruing the comp time at some point, she's going to have to take the time off, and it just didn't make sense. I had the resources available, so I made the decision to pay her, and as a result, we're going to get some reimbursement for that.
So Anna,
Oh, go ahead.
you're talking the 3/1 to 6/30 in the year 20.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, and at that point, the position was a 20-hour-a-week position. That was before.
No,
No,
it's already
no.
30.
Oh, it was already 30.
Yes. Because remember, last fiscal year, the board, we came to the boards and the hours were increased mid-year.
From 20 to 30
Oh,
in
okay.
January, I believe, January of 2020.
That's correct, yes.
So we have not, we increased the position 50%,
Oh, okay.
have not even reached the end of 12 months yet. So I wouldn't say that this is a chronic issue. I think we agreed that we would, watch it carefully, and we did. And I don't know if the rest of you are as concerned as I am to hear tonight that she was actually paid in excess of the 30 hours out of a different budget. And last month we specifically asked if she was compensated for those hours she was working, and the answer was no, that she was accumulating comp time. So I'm a little bit concerned right now, and I absolutely am not in favor of approving this tonight.
I'm taking a different approach on this and looking at it not from Rebecca's viewpoint, or even this issue is about Rebecca. I think it's a systemic issue, and the questions that I've been asking have been about, are we budgeting enough money for this HR position? And what I have heard is that we're below expectation compared to other towns. And in my experience, I think we're below too, in terms of how many employees versus the HR position. And I think that's what the issue is. I think the additional duties are, come and go. And I don't think, it doesn't make sense to have a budget follow, ebbs and flows. I think the COVID thing is an interesting twist to it, and I'm not sure I understand that completely. But systemically, what I'm hearing is that we have a budget for HR and it's not adequate. I don't think it's, and that's how I'm looking at it, not as can Rebecca get her job done in that time, but are we adequately budgeting for an HR position? And I think if you compare outside of East Lyme, I think we're low. I mean, I suspected that when I was asking, and that's what I've heard this week, and I heard that somewhat last month as well. So that's where I'm coming from and looking at this. We don't make budget changes based on individuals or based on people. We make them based on positions and expected productivity. So given that the ratio seems to be low, and that's the information we have, I would vote for it.
Anna, can I ask a question? So there was the overtime payment through June 30th, 20, and then after that, it switched to comp time for Rebecca?
That's correct, yes.
Was there a reason that it switched to comp time from overtime?
So if you remember last fiscal year, the position was included in the finance department. Beginning
Right.
July 1st, it was carved out, and it's an independent department now, HR. So within the HR department, it's just the base salary. additional resource to, for additional hours. So that's the difference.
Okay, so you had an overtime provision within your budget for that position when it was in your department?
Not specifically for that position. I have an account in my budget, part-time assistance, in the event that any of my staff members need to work additional hours.
Okay.
So, and I think that it would be a good idea if you need to pay her, and if she doesn't need the 30 hours, maybe one week she works 25, pay her for 25 then, if that's how you want to handle it. But let's be in an over budget situation so that we can clearly see whether it's warranted or not. And if it is, then we can make a transfer. We can appropriate money into the HR department at a later time. I'm just saying I think it's premature. I think if there's a little bump in activity in different people's professional jobs, we should make do with what we have. I mean, that's what most of us do, right? In a professional job. That's what you do, Anna, right? This is a department head, right? So I would say, let's give it the year and revisit it next year. And I'm imagining that there's going to be a lot more departments that are going to be seeking additional people, and we'll have to deal with it then. But I don't want to look at anything in a silo or in a vacuum. I'd like to look at the whole picture. And I'm not sure it's fair to carve out extra hours for one position when we don't know the totality of the situation.
Just a quick question. Anna, last time, didn't you say something? I can't remember exactly, but you said that you couldn't pay the salaries if something wasn't in the budget or something?
Right. So
Did you
what
say
happens?
something like that?
What happens is when payroll accounts are overexpended, the payroll processing, it won't let us post to the system. So we have to post to the system before we can start the next payroll. So having overexpended accounts creates issues that way for us.
And at what level is that? Is that at the department level or the total company level?
Department level.
So that's the issue with HR because there's only one person in that department. There's no.
Right. It's a small departmental budget, which most of the departments are similar. They're all, are all small department budgets, and it would create issues.
What's your department, Anna?
118.
So you have part-time clerical funds in your department.
Yes.
Everything else is tracking appropriately at 33 to 35%. It's just that part-time clerical that's tracking lower than what was budgeted. Okay. Let's take a vote, folks. Okay?
I can,
But Anna,
Before the vote, we need the motion, of course, but I mean, I think we should do this tonight.
could I just ask one more question?
Sure, Rich.
Okay, so with the current detail expenditure for the HR position, we're at 35% of the budget right now, correct?
I believe so. Yes.
So is she eligible to work the 33 hours and get paid for those, and then we see where the trend goes? Because this was originally dated 10/8, so we're a month after that. And the wording in the agenda item mentioned for 38 weeks to provide $3,500, $3,600. So we've got another, let's say, 30 weeks left in her salary line item. Could she work the 33 hours and get paid and just deplete that? And then we see, like, in a month or two or three, and see where it's tracking? And at that time, add money from contingency? Is that allowable?
You know what, it's not really a practice that we follow. So it would really be making an exception to how we treat one employee versus all other employees, when you think about it.
Well, when you think about it, didn't you just suggest that if she only works 31 hours in 1 week, that's all that she would charge for? That's kind of an unusual situation too, isn't it?
Well, it is, but that's how the proposal was brought forward to the boards to consider, giving a range of additional hours that she estimated she would need based upon how her work weeks have been flowing for her.
Yes, Anne.
So would we have reassurance that she's not going to be coming back next month to go up to the 37.5 hours?
Well, you know what, I would certainly, I think that would be difficult to support, since the request was, the request is coming forward based on how her work weeks have been tracking.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so I'd like to take a vote this evening. Let's get this off the agenda. If somebody would like to read the motion.
I'll read it. That's fine. I'll read it. Okay, motion to approve a special appropriation and transfer in the amount of $3,576.18 from account number 01-01-120-200-500 contingency to account 01-01-106-100-211, parentheses, HR manager, to allow for up to an additional 3 hours per week. This request comes during the fiscal year due to workload.
Thanks, Ann Santoro. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thanks, John. Okay, any further discussion on this? Hearing no further discussion, I'll call for a vote one by one. Peter DeRosa, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ann Santoro,
Yes.
Ann Chikello. Could you unmute yourself, Ann, please?
Yes.
Rich Steele,
Abstain.
and John,
Yes.
and I am a nay. So motion carries 4-1-1. So Karen Dimitrick, just to make sure you caught that, I'm the nay vote, and Rich Steele is abstaining. Everybody else is a yay. Okay, thanks, everyone. With that, there's really nobody else on the call for public discussion. There's nobody in the waiting room, so we will skip that and move to board comments. I just have a quick comment to make tonight. This was our 12th month of being together as a team, and despite everything that just happened tonight, I'm really pleased with the work that we've done. It's the first time in 8 years of me being on the Board of Finance that every single one of us has attended. We have a 100% record for attendance for the past year. I don't think that's ever happened before. So I just want to thank you all. You know, it's a tough job. I'm that you do find it rewarding in some way and keep coming back. Because again, the attendance and the participation level has just been outstanding. So I just want to thank you. Anna Johnson, thank you as always for, putting up with all of our detailed questions, but we do it for the benefit of the taxpayer. So hopefully you take it with a grain of salt, every question that we ask.
Thank
All right,
you.
that's all I have. Anybody else? Seeing no other board comments, is there a motion to adjourn?
So
I'll make
moved.
a motion to adjourn.
All right, we'll go with Peter making the motion and Chikello seconding. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.
Good
Night.
night.
All right.